Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Stefan. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide some advice and information around tips for improving your posture. And the reason we have decided to run this webinar as an organisation is because increasingly where we're all working from home, you might find yourself working in physical spaces that you wouldn't usually be in when you're conducting your day-to-day work activities, and that could be that you're suddenly sitting on a sofa or sitting at a desk that you're not used to when you're otherwise in an office or out and about. And after a little while of sitting in these unusual or different positions, you might be feeling a little bit stiffer than usual. So the purpose of today's webinar is just to provide some general advice and tips that you may find helpful for improving your posture. There's also further information I'd add on the NHS's website around improving aspects of your posture, particularly with focus to the current environment and working from home. Now, the first thing I would say is that what you might find when you're working in a different position to what you're used to at work, where you might have a particular desk, chair, and a desk set up, possibly with something to raise your computer or rest for your wrists, whatever it may be. You might find in your current situation that your muscles might be feeling a bit sore or a bit more stiffer than they otherwise would be. And it might be because you're having to compensate by adjusting the angle you're sitting at. It could be that you're now slouching down more so than you would when you're working in the office. And it's really important here to get into the habit of sitting correctly. So you might not feel comfortable because you're not really conditioned to sit in the way that you're sitting, but it's important to incorporate some exercises to help you adjust to the way that you're working at the moment. And it could even be exercises like bridges or back extensions or planks that you incorporate into your exercise routine that just help to strengthen those muscles that you are now relying on more so than you would when you're in your usual place of work. The next thing that you might notice yourself doing is flattening your back. So this is particularly common when you've got some muscle imbalances, and it's something that ideally you want to avoid being in a position for too long. So this is where you kind of hunch over your shoulders slightly in it, rather than having the natural curve to the back, you're kind of flattening it out. And again, what that causes is it causes you to lean your neck back and your head forwards. It creates a strain in the upper back. Again, for this particular issue that you might encounter, it can be important to strengthen your core muscles and also your neck and back muscles as well. Some exercises that can help with that: planks, hip stretches, and also stretches that work your upper back as well. It's again important to recognise that where we're not working in a normal environment, it might be more of a factor. Something that I know I'm definitely guilty of doing at the moment is leaning over my laptop when I'm working. So if I move the laptop from the desk in front of me to my lap, if I'm not working at the dining room table, I tend to find that I'm looking down at my screen, particularly the same when I'm using my work mobile as well. I tend to be arching my neck over and looking down in towards my lap. And after 5 or 10 minutes, I find that my neck and shoulders get very stiff and tense. Again, firstly, it's important to avoid doing that if possible. So whether it's making sure that you're sitting in appropriate positions, if you're in a situation similar to myself where you're working at home with your partner and there aren't infinite desk spaces that you could both work at the same time, so sometimes you maybe haven't got access to the desk. It's just about finding a way of popping up your computer or your laptop so that you're not looking down at it and leaning over it. Again, there are exercises that can help in this particular situation. So it could be that you're looking at strengthening exercises for your back and your shoulders, but also stretches as well. So chest stretches where you pull both shoulders back, and posture exercises for your neck as well, so you're not always kind of leaning and curving your neck down when you look at your computer. Another kind of postural issue that I think a lot of people might encounter, perhaps when you're making cups of tea or whatever it is leaning to one side too long. So this is the sort of thing that happens when you're standing up. Um, might not be a factor for a lot of people at the moment, but certainly in my house where it's quite little, and as I say, only one effective workspace, I do find myself standing up on the phone quite a lot, or standing up when I'm writing a brief email response. This is the sort of thing where you kind of rest all your weight to one side, so it's all going through one hip, one leg, and what that ends up doing over time is causing a bit of an imbalance where one side of your pelvis or one side of your hip is a lot stronger than the other. It tends to be one side that you'll always lean to rather than mixing it between the two, which isn't such a problem. But the problem that you'll get when you get muscle imbalances is that you'll start to get uneven hips, and that'll cause pain in itself, and it can lead to injuries as well. So one of the best ways to correct this issue is to get in the habit of standing with both legs, carrying an even amount of weight there or thereabouts. Again, there are exercises as well. If this applies to you where you find that you've been doing that for a long period of time and there is a bit of an imbalance, you visit the NHS's website. There's lots of tips around exercises that you can do, things like straight leg raises and side leg raises as well. So exercises where you're lying on a mat possibly that can help to correct that imbalance. I just want to direct people to the CareFirst Lifestyle site as well at this time, where there's further information that you can access, content around fitness and other lifestyle articles too. So if you log in with your organization's username and password, if you don't have access to this, if you just go to your organization's HR department, you should be able to access these details. You might find them on posters around the organization as well, or whilst we're working from home largely, you might find that you've been emailed them out to you. But when you log in, if you go to the health section, and then if you were to go into either the physical health section or also the section on fitness, you'll find that there's lots of content in there around fitness, around posture, musculoskeletal conditions, for example, which can be impacted by posture, even information on gyms, on keeping fit at home. Lots of content there that you'll find useful when we're talking about improving our physical well-being. As well as that, on the lifestyle site, you will find our online counselling tool as well, which I'm highlighting here. So if there was any content that you wanted to discuss with a counsellor, but possibly didn't want to pick up the phone, for example, then you can always access the content on the lifestyle site as well. Just whilst we're talking about posture and well-being, there's also a well-being assessment that you'll see here on the lower right-hand side of the landing page. Wellbeing assessment allows you to look at 10 aspects of your health and well-being, and it includes the common things and the things we're discussing today, such as how often you exercise, for example, but it also looks at some of the overlooked factors in your well-being, and that could be how much caffeine you consume, how much water you consume, the amount of sleep you get, and even things like your stress related to finances. And it will give you a score for each of the 10 areas and a composite score across all 10. And from that, the wellbeing assessment will actually recommend goals for you to focus on to improve those aspects of your well-being that you've perhaps not performed as well as you have done in other areas. I'm just going to break away now for some questions. It's a brief webinar, but some questions. If people have any on our EAP service or indeed anything else that being discussed today, there is a questions pane on the GoToWebinar system. So if you've got any questions at all, you can type them in there. And what I'll do is I'll read them out, but I won't include the name of the person who's asked the question. So they'll remain anonymous, but I'll read the question out and do my best to answer. So we've got a few questions coming through at the moment, which is fantastic. I will do my best to work through them one by one. So the question here is, how long does the wellbeing assessment take to complete? So it's a very short assessment. So there are about 4 or 5 questions in each of the areas. So there are 10 areas, to probably no more than about 7 minutes, and they're just multiple choice responses, so you don't need to type anything out. So it doesn't take very long to complete at all. Periodically, each time you log into the lifestyle site, you can re-undertake the assessment and see how you performed in relation to the goals that the app set you. So someone's asked about the missing the start of the webinar, and they've not dialed in before and wanted to know if the webinars are running every day each week. They are indeed, and they're running on different topics as well. So each day you've got a different webinar theme to look at. So today's is on posture. Tomorrow's is a themed webinar on kindness. The day after that, we've got a guest speaker who's a certified life coach talking about the 3 stages of the pandemic response. And on Friday this week, we've got for managing a remote team. So every webinar each day is going to be different. I'd encourage people to join in. So just to be clear, some of the questions on here that are specifically around aches and pains and exercises that might be useful to help with those pains. I won't be able to answer those questions specifically because I can't give out any medical advice in that respect. The information and content from today's webinar is from the NHS website. There are further tips and further information on the site, so I would encourage people to visit the NHS website. That's nhs.uk, and then if you go to /live-well, there's an exercise section within there, and one of the articles is on common posture mistakes and fixes, and there are also more specific ones about people working from home. So apologies for the more specific questions around core strength exercises and whether back pain and arm pain might improve with the addition of certain pillows. I won't be able to answer those questions. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to do so. I apologise, but again, I would signpost you to those websites where there's more specific resources and information for you. There's a question around online DSE, display screen equipment assessment, and whether people can do those online. My answer to that would be the first place to inquire would be with your occupational health provider, whether that's in-house or externally. So CareFirst wouldn't be involved in that specifically, but again, it would be occupational health would be the first port for that. Okay, there's a question here again, a specific physical health question around chest pain and whether it could be related to COVID-19 or in relation to bad posture. And the ask of that question is wanting to discern between the two. Again, I wouldn't be qualified to answer that question. What I would do is probably in that respect encourage you to phone 111 possibly, or visit the NHS website for the coronavirus guidance, and I'm sure there'll be some specific information on the site for you, or again by calling 111. I'm going to bring today's question and answer section following the webinar to a close now, and just ask that if there are any further questions or indeed any further webinars that people would like to join, please do visit the lifestyle site, visit our coronavirus section, and join us for tomorrow's webinar and indeed the webinars every day for the forthcoming weeks. Thanks everyone, have a great afternoon.